my name's Amanda and welcome to my very first Q&A video. Recently I put the call out to you guys to ask me anything you want to know about quilting, patchwork, me, and so all of the questions that you have asked me I've compiled together and I'm going to read out and try and answer them to the best of my ability. Let's get straight into it because I have no idea how long this video is going to be because there are quite a lot of few questions to get through. So first question up is, do you do sewing, quilting, blogging as your full-time job? Yes, I do. Technically, I guess. At the moment I'm able to do this as my full-time job because I earn money from my YouTube channel, and that earning is by placing ads next to my videos. At the moment I'm looking into doing the same for my blog because at the moment I don't earn anything for that, and I know that sometimes ads on like videos and blogs and all that sort of stuff can be really annoying, but at the same time by earning from them I'm able to keep doing what I'm doing and to keep showing you videos and keep inspiring you and keep teaching you and to pretty much live out my dream career, which is what I'm doing right now. Are you self-taught in sewing and quilting? Yes, I am. I learnt how to quilt purely from books. At the time when I first started quilting there wasn't anything YouTube related or anything like that. I also have a big confession that I have never been to a sewing or quilting class, which is I guess kind of weird, but I never have. I am purely self-taught, and that kind of leads into another question, which is how did you start quilt making? So just like I said, I learnt mainly through reading quilting books and getting inspiration from there. I also learned a little bit about patchwork and quilting when I was doing textiles as one of my major subjects during my last years at high school, and I guess it was around then that I kind of realized that I was really interested in patchwork and quilting, and so I sort of pursued that. And I think definitely after leaving school and working at a big fabric store, I used to work at Spotlight, that really got my love and passion for quilting sort of in this, I don't know, to the place where it is now, I guess. Next question, are you a long arm quilter? No, I am not. I do all of my quilting on my domestic sewing machine. I have never used a long arm quilting machine before. I have seen them, but I've never used one. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I think they look like lots of fun to play with. And yeah, I will never say never. Who inspires you from the quilt making world? Wow, that is such a insane question. So many people inspire me from the quilting world. You inspire me from the quilting world. People on Instagram inspire me from the quilting world. Pinterest, everyone. But I think the main people, if you want like big sort of quilting stars, if that's the where you want the question to go, I guess I definitely learnt a lot from Amy Gibson during her Block of the Month series on Craftsy. A lot of the fundamental sort of things that I know how to do I learnt from her, so she is one of the big ones. I would definitely say Denise Schmidt. She does a lot of awesome prints and patterns and just wonderful stuff. Such a hard question to ask. But yeah, apart from those two people, I think definitely everyone that I follow on Instagram and the things that I see on Pinterest, and definitely you guys, because you are all wonderfully creative in your own way and the stuff that you come up with inspires me. I think some of the tips and tricks that you also share, I try and use myself, and then, you know, replay back to you and help you out with things if you are struggling with it. Yeah, I think there's an answer in there somewhere. What were your first projects you made? I do have a prop for this one. I'm going to show you the first thing that I had ever made at school. This is possibly the first time I'd ever really used a sewing machine. It's the first time that I had done any hand embroidery. It was pretty much a big first for anything. And it's this round cushion pillow thing. I made this when I was in year 7. That was my first year in high school. It was the year 2000 and I was 12, I think, 12 or 13, and that is my 12-year-old hand. I think I have grown a little bit. This is the first project I had ever really made. I didn't choose very easy with round circular edges, and I did a really chunky buttonhole stitch around my hand, and I'm pretty sure I might have appliqued this as well. I can't remember, but yeah, a lot of firsts in this little pillow, and I've kept it, and yeah, I love sort of looking back at it and seeing how far I've sort of progressed with things. The next question is, what was the first quilt you made? And it is this one. This one just has a basic square in a square block, and at the time this was my favorite fabric. It was like this paisley weird type fabric. I don't know, so I picked all of the different colors from this fabric, and I think I made this in 2007, so I was 19. It was 2 years after I'd left school, so I was about 19 or 20 years old when I first made my first quilt. Do you have any tips for free motion quilting? I've done a little bit of free motion quilting in my time. I wouldn't say I'm an absolute expert at it, but there are a few things I guess you do kind of need to know with that. I think rhythm is a really good thing to have because you have complete control in where the quilt goes. You need to have a really good rhythm with the way that you move the quilt, and also speed. If you go too slow, you can have either really short or really long stitch lengths, and if you have that, then it just totally ruins any sort of design that you're trying to do. I think if you're first trying out, don't start with any design that's too complicated. Stick with squiggly lines that just sort of go all over the place, and just practice before doing it on the real thing. I think that's possibly always a good tip. And I'm not too sure whether you need to change the tension or not. I'm not 100% sure whether you need to, but yeah, maybe look that up before trying free motion quilting. One other thing, if you're finding it hard to get a grip on top of the quilt, put some quilting gloves on that have like the little sticky bits on the front. That way you can sort of get a good grip on the quilt to be able to move it wherever you need to go. What has been your worst sewing crafting mistake to date? I would say, talking about free motion quilting, the free motion quilting I did on my, I call it my diamonds quilt. I did recently share on Instagram the horrible job that I did to that quilt that I am still in the process of unpicking. I don't know what I was thinking. Free motion quilting just did not go at all with that quilt. A lot of you said that you didn't find anything wrong with it, which was really nice of you to say, but it just did not go at all with that quilt, and I just had to get rid of it. So I think at the moment that would have to be the worst thing that I've done so far, and I think I did that last year maybe. Yeah. What is your favorite quilting ruler brand? I love to use the So Easy brand. I'm pretty sure that they are made in Australia, so I don't know whether they are available worldwide. I just find that all of the marks on the ruler are pretty much everything that I need. They have 45-degree lines, they're in inches, they have the 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch type markings on it. It has 1/4 inch seam in from the edge of the ruler, and they come in all different sizes and shapes, and I find that the measurements on the rulers are true to size, because sometimes you can get rulers where the measurements are just a little bit off and it just sort of screws everything up. If you want to know a little bit more about the So Easy rulers, I've got a link to their website down in the description box below. Do you plan out your quilts to include backing and binding before starting on the top? The question to that is usually no. I just sort of get on with the quilt top and worry about the backing and the binding later. But when I do get to the point where I need to choose a backing and a binding, I always try and go for something that will match with the colours or the sort of design of the quilt top. In my quilting, I really quite like the whole matching different prints and patterns to almost kind of make them clash, but they sort of still go together. But I don't always try and do a really big sort of matchy job on getting it all sort of together. But usually, no, I don't match backing and binding when I'm doing my top. I just sort of go with the flow and choose it when it comes to it. What is your favorite Disney movie, and have you ever been to Disneyland? No, I've never been to Disneyland. The furthest I've ever traveled is New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, but if I ever had the chance to go to Disneyland, I would in a heartbeat. I would just, oh my gosh, it's just, like there are no words for just how excited I would be if I had the opportunity to go to Disneyland or Disney World or any of those other parks. Now, my favorite Disney movie, that is a really hard thing to decide, but I think I would have to say the ones that I grew up watching, and they would be Pocahontas and Aladdin. And recent ones I would have to say would be Tangled and Princess and the Frog. I really, really love that one. Oh, but then there's Toy Story because I love Buzz. Oh, that's a really hard question. That's a really hard question. I love all of them. I think that sums it up. I love all Disney movies. Ah, I can't choose a favorite. Do you think that quilting sewing is harder for those outside of the US as prices are crazy high? And how do you get those gorgeous fabrics without breaking the bank? On some levels, I do think it is a little bit harder for us in Australia to get the really, really great fabrics that are available in the US. And yes, prices are crazy high because you're mainly paying for postage. If I had an unlimited amount of money in my bank account, I would be buying fabric from the US all of the time and buying all of the big quilting ranges and all of that sort of stuff. But in reality, I just can't afford that. And there are places in Australia where you can buy the big quilting brands and they are, you know, a good kind of price, but they're a little bit few and far in between, and you really need to have the money to be able to afford them. But I just buy a lot of my fabrics from Spotlight. Although they don't have the big quilting ranges that are available in like the boutique type quilting and fabric stores, they're still really good quality fabrics. They have some really great prints, and they are beginning to get in a few big name designers. They've had Denise Schmidt fabrics there and Sarah Felke fabrics, and they're bringing in Cloud9 fabrics, and they've just recently been bringing in licensed fabrics like Mickey and Frozen and the Hungry Caterpillar and Winnie the Pooh and lots of Disney type ones. But yeah, a lot of them are just generic run-of-the-mill type fabrics, but a better quality than really cheap type fabrics. I don't know, it's really hard to explain. But because I think a lot of the prints at Spotlight are the kind of stuff that I like, I'm able to afford them because they usually range around $10 to $14, and then I always wait until they're on clearance and then I buy them, and then I use them as best as I can in my sewing. The amount of fabric that I have in my stash, I really don't need to be buying any more fabric, but that's beside the point. What foundation do you wear? I don't really wear foundation. I just usually do more concealer. I'm pretty lucky that I have quite good skin. The concealer that I do use is the Rimmel Wake Me Up, and this is in the colour Classic Beige, and I find that this is the perfect shade for me all year round. It just makes everything just look so much better, seriously. It just hides all of the redness that I have in my face, all the horrible, you know, under eye bags and all that sort of stuff. But when I do use a foundation, it's usually this one. It is the Rimmel Match Perfection, and this one is in Soft Beige. What are your favourite brands for foundations, blushes and lipsticks? I am a huge lover of Rimmel. The majority of my makeup products are by Rimmel. I love all of their lipsticks, all of their blushes. I also really like the Maybelline blushes. I'm also a big fan of the makeup by Bourjois. I think that's how you say it, Bourjois, no. But I have a few of their blushes as well as their Rouge Edition Velvets. And I also really love using the Revlon and Real Techniques brushes. Have you ever imagined yourself becoming a fabric designer? I would love to be able to have the chance to design my own fabric range. I wouldn't know how to do it or what to do it on or base it on, but if I was given the opportunity, I would definitely say yes. And with that question, I've also been asked, would you consider writing a book about anything quilt or crafting related? And the answer to that is also yes. If given the opportunity, I would love to be able to write a quilting book. I'm not sure whether I would have any craft things in it, maybe, but I would think I would have it more as a quilting book. Possibly leaning towards beginner and intermediate quilters, just showcasing how to make some really beautiful quilts, and yeah, just how fun and awesome quilt making is. I think that's what my book would be about. Do you have a favorite fabric line? I have lots of favorite quilting lines. I think my most favorite would have to be the one that I made my Jacob's Ladder quilt out of. That was a Denise Schmidt range, and I can't for the life of me remember what it's called. I think I'll pop it up on the screen because I'll research it. It's not her Piccadilly range. It was, oh my gosh, I can't remember. But that one is a huge favorite of mine, and I would have to say anything by Chula Pink is a favorite, anything by Moda is a favorite, anything by Riley Blake is a favorite, anything by Kath Kidson is a favorite. She has beautiful fabrics. I think it's really hard to really pick a favorite. Yeah, there's lots. Does your family have a love for crafting and sewing? And if yes, is that where you get your passion from? And then there was another question along the lines of, do you have any other quilters in your family? The answer to that is no. I am at the moment the only sewer quilter in my family. A lot of my great aunts did a lot of embroidery, and my grandmother's crocheted and all that sort of stuff, but both of my grandmothers died either before I was born or just as I was born, so I didn't get to learn anything from them, and I wasn't very close to my great aunts on my mother's side, so I didn't really learn very much from them. So everything that I know or love about quilting and sewing and crafting is from my own passion or want to be able to explore it. My parents always think that the crafty sort of gene skipped generations. It went from like their mothers and their aunties and onto me, which I would definitely agree with. My mum's a school teacher and isn't really that crafty. My dad is creative in his own way. I think he is more of a gardener slash do stuff with wood and carpentry and stuff like that than sewing. Although the first time I did ever sew on a sewing machine was on my mum's like 1970s Singer metal machine. I guess I was always really quite intrigued with her sewing machine and always wanted to use it, and she was really quite skeptical about that, but she did let me. And when it sort of came to the time where I really wanted to start sewing, her sewing machine pretty much gave up the ghost, so that wasn't very good, I guess. But I got a new one for my 16th birthday, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, my passion is purely me. Just, I don't know, it's just the way that I am and the way that I think. I always need to be doing something with my hands. I always need to be doing something creative, and my creative outlet just happens to be fabric and sewing machines and quilting and crafting. I think if I didn't have the opportunity to do sewing and stuff like that, my creativity sort of brain would possibly have gone to being creative in the kitchen, which is obviously my second thing that I absolutely love to do. What age did you start sewing? I have mentioned a little bit of this through past questions. Technically I started sewing when I first started high school, so that was in like we called it D&T, so design and technology, where we did like sewing classes and stuff like that. So my pillow was possibly the first time I ever really sat down to learn how to use a sewing machine, and then from there I really got more into it when I was 16 and upwards, which is when I started textiles at high school, and textiles was my best subject. I topped that class throughout my last 2 years at high school, and it was my best subject, mainly because, I don't know, I had this really geeky interest in it. I mean, like, everything about the properties of fabric and like the properties of the fibers that make fabric, like cotton and linen, and then all of the properties of the man-made fibers like polyester and nylon, all of that stuff I'm just so geeky about. I don't know, like, I don't know. I mean, even like the way that a fabric is woven, just, I don't know, I'm so into that. I don't know, this is, I don't know, it's just something that really grabbed my attention, and yeah, it's just something that I really loved. So around about 12 years old I started sewing, and then I really got serious about it 16 and onwards. Where do you get your inspiration from? I get my inspiration from you guys. I get inspiration from Pinterest. I get inspiration from books. I get inspiration from Facebook, Instagram, just everywhere that you can sort of find quilting from, I get inspiration from. How do you keep your designs fresh, modern and young in an industry dominated by older women? I think that has a lot to do with my own aesthetic and the type of designs and prints that I'm attracted to. I like to just basically choose big, bold, fresh type colors in my fabrics, and I guess by using those types of fabrics you end up having really fresh, beautiful quilts. I really love mashing like traditional blocks with fresh modern fabrics. I really love that twist with quilt making. I guess you can kind of see that with my Crown of Thorns quilt. The Crown of Thorns block is very, very traditional, and I've sort of somehow made it modern and fresh by using bright colours and just changing up the way that it's placed in a quilt. Just sort of, I don't know, just makes it look so much more modern and young and fresh, I guess. How long does it usually take you to make a quilt from start to finish? That's a hard one because I think it just depends on what's happening in life. Whether I'm busy with other things, or I have blog posts to write or videos to film and edit. I think it's a good maybe month. I think that's maybe the longest, but the shortest I think maybe 2 weeks. I have definitely also made a quilt within days. I've also made a quilt within weeks. Yeah, it really just depends on when it needs to be done, how much time I have, how much, I guess, enthusiasm I have as well. You got to be in a good mood to quilt, I think, especially when you're doing bits that you just don't want to be doing, like basting. Ugh. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with an average of 2 weeks. Do you quilt your own quilts? If so, when you started quilting, how did you get over the frustration of your quilting not looking like your idol quilts? Yes, I do quilt my own quilts. I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to that, to be perfectly honest, I guess. I think it's really important to let go of the notion of getting your quilts looking perfect, especially if you're doing it yourself on your own machine. I think once that expectation is gone and you've accepted it, then the process is going to be a whole lot nicer. And you also need to remember that you yourself are not a machine. You are a person. You will make mistakes. You're not going to be able to do it perfect. And a lot of the quilts made by big quilt designers, they've all been quilted on a big long arm quilting machine, which is kind of like a professional type way of quilting your quilts. And by using a longer arm machine, you have so much more control of getting all of the stitches perfect and just getting everything, you know, just looking beautiful. Now, I know myself that I'm not going to be able to get that kind of up to spec type finish on the quilts that I make, and I'm okay with that. I personally really love the effect of a quilt looking handmade. So by handmade, it has mistakes in it. You can see that some of the lines aren't perfect. You can see some of the stitch lengths aren't perfect. You know, that's the point of a quilt. A quilt is this handmade, beautiful thing that you're making either for yourself or for someone special or for a exhibition or for a competition. It's a handmade item and it's not going to be perfect. And yeah, I think once you sort of accept that and then just accept it for what it is and for what your skill level is, then you're going to love it and you're just going to sort of improve. I think ever since I sort of let go of the notion that I myself am not perfect and I can't get the quilts perfect to my idol quilts, my own quilting and my own practice and my own enthusiasm and my own passion for quilting has grown in leaps and bounds. And when I have made something that I'm not happy with, then I pushed myself and found a way to make it better. Not perfect, but better. And I think that's also another thing that you need to think about. So yes, I do understand that when you're first starting out with quilting, it can be frustrating that your quilts aren't as perfect as some of the more professional type quilts, but that will come with practice and also just knowing what does and doesn't work for you when you're quilting. What do you like to do other than crafts and baking? And then there was also another question of, do you enjoy other crafty things such as knitting or crochet? Other things that I like to do other than sewing and baking would have to be watching movies. I love watching films and like TV shows and stuff like that. I also like to hang out with friends and family and my nephews and my niece. I love to go shopping and spending money that I don't have. And I also really love just getting in my car and driving. Yeah. And answering the other question about knitting and crocheting, I know the basics of knitting and crochet, but I don't know a whole lot about them. I have knitted and crocheted before, but I'm more of a quilter. That's all I can really say. Did you ever try out other crafts that didn't seem to suit you when you tried? Yes, I think the one that I have tried but I haven't really quite got into is scrapbooking. I don't know. I mean, I like doing paper crafts, but I don't know, with scrapbooking, it's just not really my thing. And I can't really put my finger on why. I don't know, it's just something that it doesn't appeal to me. But I do like looking at all the really cool like die cuts and papers and stickers that go with scrapbooking. But I wouldn't actively go out and buy something and start a scrapbooking project. I don't know, just not really into it. Are there any techniques you're interested in trying that intimidate you? I'm assuming that question is related to patchwork techniques. Yes, there is one that I would really love to know how to do, and that is a lone star. That is the one where you sew strips together and then you cut them at a 45-degree angle and then sew them together to create like this star effect, and it has like Y seams and all this sort of stuff, and it's just a really technical type block to make. I think I've tried it once. It was years and years and years ago when I first got into patchwork. I totally screwed it up and I haven't tried it since. But yeah, that's one thing that does definitely intimidate me, and I would love to be able to accomplish it and make something that I think is really quite beautiful and worthy to share with you, I guess. This next one I got asked quite a lot, and it is, are you going to be doing another quilt along? Yes, I will be doing another quilt along. I'm not quite sure when. I'm thinking of maybe doing like a sampler quilt or maybe one as a Christmas quilt. But yeah, I possibly will do another one this year, but I haven't quite worked it out yet. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Should I do a sampler one or would you like a Christmas one? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Which Adventure Time character do you relate to most? Oh, I like this question. As you know, I love Adventure Time. I would have to say I relate most to Jake. That's the dog. I think he's the kind of character that just doesn't take any crap. I think he's possibly the most mature but also knows when to be silly and how to be silly. I do like that he doesn't take crap. He's very skeptical, and I'm very much like that. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm really skeptical when people, I don't know, just don't seem to be being their true self, and he seems to like hone in on that. There's a few episodes that are sort of based around that. He's really loyal and yeah, is a really great friend to Finn, and he's funny and creative, and he's just really logical about stuff, and I think I'm like that as well. I don't know. But yeah, that was a really great question. I loved that one. And the very last question is, do you enjoy designing, selecting fabric, cutting, sewing, or quilting the most? You know what? I absolutely love every single step of quilting except for basting. That's the only bit of quilting that I don't like. That question also left out the binding. I love sewing on the binding because it's like the last bit and then the quilt is pretty much finished. Lately, I think the bit that I've really loved doing when I'm making a quilt is the cutting. I know that there are a lot of people out there who hate the cutting step when it comes to quilting. I absolutely love it. I don't know why that is. I think when I do it, I'm able to put some music on and just sort of cut and prepare and just get everything organized, which is something that I do a lot in my life. I'm very organized and everything has its place, and I think that's the same when it comes to cutting all my fabric. I line it all up and get it ready, and then yeah, just sort of start. I think with cutting it just allows me to get into the right headspace to daydream about what the quilt's going to be like, and yeah, just to sort of get myself ready and excited for it. So yeah. So those are the majority of the questions that you guys asked me. There were a few that I weren't able to answer because they would need to be answered by me demonstrating how they're done or how to fix problems or stuff like that. So I will try my very, very best to try and answer those in the next coming weeks. Thank you to everyone for asking me these great questions, and hopefully you've learned a little bit more about me and I've been able to help you with a few things that you have been struggling with. Now, I really do love answering your questions, so if you have a question that you would like to ask me about patchwork or quilting, you can definitely comment down below and I will answer you as soon as I can. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and hope to see you another time very, very soon. Bye!